You're the person everyone comes to when they need something. The friend who always listens. The colleague who always helps, the partner who always understands. And you tell yourself, this is who you are. This is your value: being kind, being available, being accommodating. But somewhere deep inside, noticed something uncomfortable. The more you give, the less people appreciate you. The kinder you are, the more they take advantage, the more boundaries you don't set. The more they push and you can't quite name it, but you feel it in your body, in the tightness. When you say yes, but mean no. In frustration, when people cancel on you but you would never do that to them. In the slowly growing resentment that you're ashamed to admit. You feel Riley experienced this her whole life. She was the nice one, the one who never caused problems, who always made things easy for others, who bent herself in shapes to fit everyone else's needs, and people loved her. For it, they said she was so sweet, so understanding, so easy to be around. But they also canceled plans, last minute, knowing she'd understand, interrupted her constantly, knowing she wouldn't complain, asked favors without reciprocating. She'd say yes. And slowly, Riley realized something painful. People didn't respect her. They liked her availability. They appreciated her usefulness. But they didn't respect her. And this is the trap that kind people fall into. They confuse being liked with being respected. They think niceness equals value. They believe accommodation means connection. But respect and affection are different things. Affection is what people feel for what serves them. Respect is what people feel for what they cannot cross. And until you understand this distinction, you will keep giving and wondering, so empty. Here's what nobody tells you about respect. It's not earned through kindness. It's earned through boundaries. Respect doesn't come from how nice you are. It comes from how seriously people take you, and people don't take you seriously. When you're always available, always understanding, accommodating, because your flexibility reads as lack of standards. Your constant forgiveness reads as lack of self-worth. Your endless patience reads as permission to be treated poorly. Riley learned this the hard way. Her friend canceled plans for the third time. Riley said, "It's okay. I understand her." Boss gave her extra work without extra pay. Riley said, "Sure, no problem." Her partner forgot her birthday. Riley said, "These things happen." And each time she said, "It's okay," the message she sent was, "I don't matter enough to be upset. You can treat me this way without consequence. There are no boundaries here." And people heard that message loud and clear. Not consciously, but psychologically. Because the human brain respects resistance. It respects pushback. It respects the point where someone says no further. Not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet firmness. And when you never provide that resistance, you're infinitely flexible. People unconsciously test how far they can go. They're not doing it maliciously. Most of the time, they're simply responding to what you've taught them about your boundaries, which is that you don't have any. And here's the brutal truth. Once people learn they can treat you carelessly, they'll continue to do so until you change the dynamic. Not because they're evil, but because humans are wired to seek the path of least resistance. And you've made yourself the path of least resistance in everyone's life. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you pay a price, not just externally in how others treat you, but internally in how you see yourself, because each unwanted yes is a small betrayal of yourself. A message to your own psyche that other people's comfort matters more than your truth. Riley kept mental tally, though she didn't realize it. Every time she agreed to plans, she didn't want tally mark. Every time she accepted treatment, she found unacceptable tally mark. Every time she silenced her real feelings to keep peace, tally mark. And slowly, those tally marks added up to a crushing weight of resentment. Not just toward others, but toward herself. Because the voice inside kept asking, why don't you stand up for yourself? Why do you let them treat you this way? Why are you so weak? And here's where it gets dark. That self-judgment, that internal criticism is often harsher than anything others do to you. Because you know you're complicit. You know you taught them how to treat you. You know you're choosing this. Then knowledge is painful. This is the hidden cost of people-pleasing. It's not just about others taking advantage. It's about the slow erosion of self-respect, the gradual loss of your own voice, the creeping shame of knowing you're betraying yourself. And you can't blame others for your choice. Psychology shows that chronic people-pleasers often struggle with anxiety, depression, and sense of emptiness. Not because life is particularly hard for them, but because they've abandoned authentic self to maintain false harmony, and living in constant self-betrayal is exhausting, soul-crushing, and ultimately unsustainable. Something has to break, and usually Riley's turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday. Her colleague asked her to cover a shift, knowing Riley had plans. It was the fourth time that month. Riley opened her mouth to say, of course. No problem, like she always did. But something stopped her. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was finally hitting her limit. Maybe it was one unwanted. Yes, too many. But instead she said, no, I can't. I have plans. Silence on the other end. Then, oh, okay, no worries, I'll find someone else. And that was it. No anger, no punishment, no relationship-ending catastrophe. The world didn't end. The colleague just found someone else, and Riley stood there shocked. That it had been that simple, but also angry. That she'd been saying yes for years, when no was always an option. She'd been operating under false beliefs that saying no would make people hate her. That boundaries would end relationships, that asserting herself would make her selfish, and none of it was true. What was true is that her constant yes had made her invisible. Her endless accommodation had made her unimportant. Her lack of boundaries had signaled she didn't value herself, so nobody else did either. And this realization hurt, but it was also liberating. Because she created this dynamic, she could change it. She started small, saying no to small things, without explaining, without apologizing, without softening it, with 1,000 justifications. Just no, I'm not available. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I won't be doing that. And something shifted. People didn't leave, they adjusted. They respected the boundary. They stopped asking her to do things she'd always done, because now there was resistance. Now there was a line, and people respect lines, even when they don't like them. Setting boundaries after years of having none is uncomfortable. Not just because you're changing the dynamic, but because you're going against your own conditioning, your own identity, your own understanding of who you are. Riley had to face this. She'd built her entire personality around being accommodating. One, the easy one, the understanding one. And saying no felt like betraying herself, like becoming someone she didn't want to be. But here's what she learned. You're not becoming mean. You're becoming honest. You're not becoming selfish. You're becoming self-respecting. You're not becoming difficult. You're becoming clear. And people respect clarity, even when it disappoints them. She noticed the shift immediately. Some people adjusted easily. They respected the new boundaries, appreciated knowing where she stood, valued the honesty. Some people got uncomfortable. They called her changed, said she was being cold, tried to guilt her back into old patterns. These people revealed themselves as having only valued her usefulness, not her actual self. And as painful as it was, Riley learned to let them go, because relationships built on your self-abandonment aren't real relationships. Exploitation, disguised as connection. But the most important shift happened internally, with each boundary set, with each no that didn't end in catastrophe with each time. She chose herself. Riley's self-respect grew. And as her self-respect grew, others' respect for her grew too, not because she became perfect, but because she became consistent. People knew where she stood, knew what she would and wouldn't accept, knew that her yes meant yes, and her no meant no, and that consistency, that integrity, is what respect is built on. Here's a power move that nice people never learned: strategic withdrawal. The ability to remove your presence, your energy, your availability as a response to disrespect. And it works not because it's manipulation, but because it's honesty. It's the natural consequence of someone violating your boundaries. Riley learned this when a friend repeatedly canceled last-minute plans instead of saying it's okay like always. Riley said nothing, didn't respond to the apology text, didn't reach out to reschedule, didn't make it easy for the friend to slip back into the dynamic of disrespect, and the silence was powerful, more powerful than any confrontation could have been. Because it said through action, this behavior has consequences. I am not infinitely available. My time has value, and disrespecting it means losing access to it. The friend reached out, confused, then defensive, then finally reflective, apologetic, and Riley responded calmly, without anger, but also without pretending it was fine. I value my time, and reliability matters to me. The friendship either needed to become reciprocal, or it needed to end. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. No explaining, no justifying, teaching people how to treat you better. Just removing yourself from situations where you're not respected, and letting the absence speak for itself. Because here's what most people don't understand. Your presence is valuable, but they won't know that until you're willing to take it away. And if you're never willing to withdraw, if you're always there, no matter how you're treated, then your presence becomes taken for granted, becomes expected, becomes something people assume they're entitled to. Strategic withdrawal says, I am not entitled to you, I am a choice. And if you don't choose to respect me, don't get access to me. There's a specific energy that commands respect. And it's not anger, it's not aggression, it's not loud assertion. It's calm firmness. The ability to hold your ground without emotional reactivity, to say no without guilt, to maintain boundaries without needing to explain, defend, or justify. Riley practiced this in front of a mirror. At first it felt ridiculous, but she needed to see what it looked like to be firm without being mean. The key was in her body language, standing straight, not shrinking, making eye contact, not looking away, speaking clearly, not trailing off into explanations, keeping her steady, not apologetic. And most importantly, the pause, the ability to let silence sit instead of rushing to fill it with justifications. When someone pushed back against a boundary, instead of immediately explaining why, she just waited. Let the no stand. Let them sit with it. Let the discomfort be theirs, not hers. And people responded differently to this energy. They stopped arguing, stopped trying to negotiate, stopped attempting to guilt her, because there was nothing to push against. No emotional reaction to manipulate. No guilt to exploit. No uncertainty to leverage, just a calm immovable. No psychology. Calls this grounded assertiveness, and it's one of the most powerful interpersonal tools you can develop. Because it communicates, I am not afraid of your reaction. I am not responsible for your feelings. I know what I want, and I don't need your permission. The people who respect this kind of energy, the people worth having in your life. The people who react with anger, manipulation, or withdrawal, when you set calm boundaries, are showing you who they are and what they valued about you, which was your compliance, not your companion. When you start setting boundaries, people will test them. This is not malicious, it's human. We all test new boundaries to see if they're real or if they'll bend like the old ones did. Riley experienced this immediately. Colleagues asked, "Can you cover, shift, like old times?" Friends suggested plans that violated her stated boundaries. Family expected her to prioritize their needs, like always. And each time it was a test: will she hold the line, or will she cave? Will this boundary be real, or was it temporary performance? And here's the critical moment. The first few times you're tested, you must hold firm. Because if you cave immediately, people learn the boundary was fake, was negotiable, was just a mood, not a real change. And you lose credibility, you lose respect, and you make it harder to set boundaries in the future. But if you hold firm, calmly, consistently, without anger, but also without bending, something shifts. People realize, oh, this is real. She means it. This isn't temporary. And they stop testing, because there's no point testing a boundary that doesn't move. Riley held firm. The colleague who asked her to cover shift, she said, "No, I'm not available. Find someone else." No apology, no explanation, just no. The friend who suggested plans that violated her boundaries, she said, "That doesn't work for me," without explaining why or offering alternatives. The family who expected her availability, she said, "I won't be able to do that." Not "I can't," which implies helplessness, but "I won't," which implies choice. And people adjusted, some gracefully, some resentfully, but they adjusted because the boundary was real. And holding real boundaries consistently is how you build lasting Here's what nobody tells you about becoming respected. You have to let go of being liked by everyone. You have to release the identity of the nice person, the easy person, the one everyone can count on, because that identity is built on self-abandonment. And you can't be both self-respecting, universally accommodating. Riley mourned this shift more than she expected. She had to grieve the version of herself that everyone loved to grieve, being the friend who never said no, to grieve being seen as sweet and easy and understanding. Because as she set boundaries, as she became selective with her time and energy, some people didn't like the new her, and that hurt. But she learned something crucial. The people who don't like you setting boundaries are people who benefited from you not having them. The friends who get upset when you're no longer available every time they call only valued availability. The colleagues who call you difficult when you stop doing extra work unpaid only valued your exploitation. The family who says you've changed when you stop prioritizing their needs over yours only valued your self-sacrifice. And losing people who only valued your lack of boundaries, not a loss. It's a correction. It's the natural filtering process that happens when you start respecting yourself. Because authentic relationships can handle boundaries. In fact, they require them. Relationships without boundaries are not relationships. They're enmeshment. They're codependency, exploitation. But the shift in identity is real. You're no longer the person everyone can count on to say yes. You're the person who says yes when it aligns with your values and no when it doesn't. And that person, that boundary authentic person, commands more genuine respect than the accommodate version ever did. So here you are understanding, now that respect and affection are different things, that boundaries are not mean, they're necessary, that saying no is not selfish, it's self-respecting, and you face a choice: continue living as you have been, accommodating, endless, flexible, perpetually available, and continue feeling taken for granted, or start the uncomfortable process of rebuilding how people relate to you. Riley chose the second path, and her life changed. Not overnight, not dramatically, but consistently. People who used to interrupt her stopped. People who used to cancel on her made more effort. People who used to take her for granted started showing appreciation, not because they suddenly became better people, but because she taught them through actions, not words, that she had standards, that her time had value, that disrespecting her had consequences. She's still kind, but now her kindness is selective, intentional, protected. She still helps people, but now she helps because she wants to, not because she's afraid to say no. She still maintains relationships, but now they're reciprocal, mutual, respectful, and the most important shift, she respects herself in a way she never did before, because every maintained boundary, every strategic withdrawal, every calm no is a message to herself. I matter, my needs are valid, I deserve to be treated well. In that internal shift, that growing self-respect is what ultimately changes how others treat you, because people can sense it, they can feel when value yourself. And that self-value, when genuine, is magnetic, commands respect, and creates the space for actual connection, not the false connection built on your self-abandonment, but real connection between two people who both respect themselves and each other. So the question is, are you ready to stop being nice and start being respected? Are you ready to set boundaries even when it's uncomfortable? Are you ready to lose people who only valued your compliance? Are you ready to choose yourself? Comment below where you need to start setting boundaries. Work, family, friendships, relationships, and what happens when you finally do? Because respect isn't given, it's commanded through how you treat yourself. And when you start respecting yourself, others have no choice but to follow.